Welcome to the Three Tomatoes Virtual Renewal Summit. This is our fourth summit, but the first virtual one. The event is co-hosted by Ann Akers and Cheryl Benton. You'll be inspired, informed, and motivated by our fabulous lineup of speakers and panelists. Here's to thriving in midlife and beyond. The moderator for this panel is Jeanne Sullivan. She's a general partner at the ArcView Venture Fund and a fierce advocate for legalization and regulation of the cannabis industry. She works as an advisor to investors for this new high-growth industry. Jeanne is also co-founder of Starvest Partners, the first female-led venture capital firm in New York City.
Hello, everyone. I am Jeanne Sullivan. I'm a longtime venture capital investor, and I am delighted to be moderating this discussion with the Three Tomatoes audience. Now, Three Tomatoes is a multimedia platform. It's got a lifestyle piece to it, and it's for women who are not kids. Now, I like that. I guess I'm glad for my years of learning. This is a virtual summit, and it's replacing an all-day renewal summit that the amazing Cheryl Benton hosts every year, and I've enjoyed it in person in the past with a wonderful community of women. You know, people ask me two questions all the time. Why are you doing this? And then they just got to know, Jeanne, do you smoke? Do you use? I just laugh at it. So the goal of our discussion today is to demystify, hey, what's fact and what's fiction on the science, the economics, and we'll also talk about the products of cannabis. Junella Chin, Dr. Junella Chin and I do this kind of overview many times, and I love calling it the demystifying the science and economics of cannabis. So with me today are two amazing women. I am so proud to be their friend and to know them. The fabulous Dr. Junella Chin. She's a practicing physician in New York City. She has great science insight. She's written a book. She and her team of physicians consult patients all over the world, and her work's been featured in many, many publications. And Wendy Nguyen, she's a fashion influencer with over 1 million Instagram followers, and she's the founder of Wendy's Lookbook. She recently opened Artemis. I've been there. It's a gorgeous, high quality CBD shop. So she's a real expert in these products, demystifying one from the other. And certainly you'll hear about some of the benefits of CBD, what you need to know and all that. I have been so lucky to see her beautiful shop in the West Village. So first, let me just start with a few facts. This is 100 years of history in just 2 minutes. This shocks me. It's the reason I am in the cannabis business. Harkening back to the first question, when people say, why are you doing this like I'm doing something like a porn ring or something? I was shocked to really learn the social justice issues. Do you know that we still arrest more than 600,000 people, mostly brown and black men and boys, but that federal illegality and this stigma around the plant has nothing to do with the health and safety issues of the plant. Yes, there are some to know about. That's one reason why we love, the three of us, to talk about this all the time. But the history is rooted in racism. In the early 1900s, what happened after the Mexican Revolution, there was an influx of immigration from Mexico, and guess what? They used cannabis. And they actually called it marijuana. Cannabis is the scientific name. And so that became something that men hooked into and realized it could be used against them to really not have those Mexican people in the United States. They didn't like that. Even in our drugstores, cannabis products were in products sold in pharmacies. And so tinctures and medicine were available all over the place. But claims were made by a very few bad guys, notice guys, especially this really bad dude named Harry Anslinger, who ruled for 32 years as the head of what became the Federal Narcotics Bureau. And in 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act effectively ban the use. So Controlled Substance Act was put in place and cannabis was put on Schedule 1. Let me tell you what Schedule 1 means. It means no medicinal value alongside heroin and LSD. And William Randolph Hearst was involved fighting off hemp. He didn't want that to replace wood pulp for newsprint. DuPont did not want hemp to overtake nylon. And then the war on drugs was promoted in the early 70s by Nixon. And then Nancy Reagan, I'm sure she didn't realize that what became the war on drugs that she preached has become a war on research, it's a war on science, and it's a war on people, a cheap excuse to arrest young Black and brown men and boys, and hippies too back in the day. So everything changed in 1996. It was actually the AIDS crisis that was the game changer. People were hungry, they weren't able to eat. So what happened is Proposition 215 was passed and created the breakthrough. Guess why? Because people who cared about the AIDS crisis put that as a ballot initiative in California, and that passed medical marijuana laws in California. And did you notice too, now there's 33 states throughout the US that either have a medical or an adult use program. I love to share this detail. Why are the Western states, you know, California, Oregon, Washington, many states have this adult use where you can just go in, you don't need a medical license and buy product. Why is that? On the East Coast, we are legislatively bound. We don't have ballot initiatives like in the state of New York, and several other states do not have it. We have to be passed through a legislative opportunity, a system of laws. But Massachusetts was able to have a ballot initiative. They put that in their constitution way back in 1915. Illinois has a fabulous program, and they were legislatively bound, meaning passed by the legislature, and they have a wonderful program that actually manages the social equity needs, expunging records, and giving people of color and diverse people an opportunity to actually have a license. We want that. All right, enough of that, because now some really amazing content that we hope to share. So Dr. Junella Chin, please introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background and what you are working on now.
Hi, I'm Dr. Junella Chin. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am an integrative cannabis physician, and what that means is I help patients integrate medical cannabis along with integrative and holistic health practices. And this includes conventional medications, conventional way of practicing, also acupuncture. I also do osteopathic manipulation and medical cannabis.
So amazing. Your work is just so wonderful. I know you've helped so many people. Wendy, introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background, what you're working on.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Wendy Nguyen. I've been in fashion for the last 10 years. I'm actually started in the finance industry and then quit my job and changed and went on to fashion. And about a year and a half ago, we started a premier CBD shop in the West Village called Artemis.
Love it. June, people talk about the endocannabinoid system. I know that's a mouthful. I love saying it. Please teach us, what is it? What isn't it? Why is it important? Why do we need to understand it?
Sure. So the endocannabinoid system is a system in our body. It exists in embryos. And let me share my screen with you so that I can illustrate what the endocannabinoid system is. Can you guys see that?
Yes,
All right,
fabulous.
hold on right here. So if we think about the endocannabinoid system, we didn't learn about it in medical school. I certainly didn't. And I went to medical school in California. California legalized medical cannabis back in 1996, and that's over 20 years ago. So if you look at the science behind the endocannabinoid system, there's over 5,100 PubMed citations, over 150 peer-reviewed studies. And the endocannabinoid system is affected by every physiological process in our body. So it works in our nervous system, it works in our endocrine system, circulatory system, our digestive system, and our respiratory system. Here is a scan of the brain, and you see everything here lit up represents cannabinoid receptors in our brain, because the cannabinoid receptors in our brain is the largest receptor system in our brain. Everything you see here lit up in this PET scan shows also endocannabinoid receptors. So you see these receptor systems in our liver, in our spine, in our pelvic region, in our digestive tract. It's literally everywhere. There's a galaxy of endocannabinoid receptors. Our skin has its own endocannabinoid receptor system. So when we come to issues like eczema, acne, any inflammatory processes, overly dry skin or overly inflamed skin, rosacea, these are due to dysfunction, imbalance in the endocannabinoid system of our skin. So the endocannabinoid system, it interacts with phytocannabinoids, which is found in the cannabis plant, in the marijuana plant. And there's over 1,500 strains of cannabis plants. There's terpenes, which give the cannabis plants its aroma, and there's different cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. The two most well-known cannabinoids are CBD and THC. And I always compare them to a married couple because they're very complementary, they're synergistic, but they're also antagonistic. Now, THC is what recreational users prize because it's very sedating and relaxing. It gives you that euphoric feeling, but it's also anti-muscle spasm, anti-pain. It is an anticonvulsant as well. Now, CBD is also an anti-inflammatory, anti-pain, anti-muscle relaxant, but it doesn't produce the euphoric effects, and it's not usually sedating. So many consumers can take CBD during the day. I have a lot of professionals on CBD, and they don't have to worry about driving, about being public facing without feeling altered. Now, NYU Langone, Montefiore, GW Pharmaceuticals, these are just examples of large medical institutions that have received millions and millions of dollars, even from the Department of Justice, to study cannabis. And they're doing studies on cannabis and autism, cannabis and epilepsy, cannabis and Crohn's and colitis. So if we start to take a step back and think about, the endocannabinoid system, we can understand why it can treat a myriad of diseases. So from chronic pain, nausea, migraines, anxiety. I have a lot of patients that I'm treating with cancer, even Alzheimer's, MS, and PTSD.
And one thing that I'm fascinated with, and I've learned this from you, that cannabis affects different receptors than opioids. Talk to us about that.
So we can't overdose on cannabis. We can overconsume cannabis, which can make many of us uncomfortable. But because there's no cannabinoid receptors in the brainstem that affect the heart and the lungs, we can't go into cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest, which we can when we overdose on opiates, on narcotics. So cannabis is a really safe alternative for opiate medication. And because we can't overdose on it, many patients find that they can take it safely.
Yes, and we want to talk about that in this webinar because people have no idea what to take or how much to take. So that's something we'll learn from both of you. But Wendy, now talk to us. Tell us about your beautiful shop. Tell us about coming to the U.S. Give us your story, and then we'll go into some of the issues around your the products and all.
Thank you so much. When we started the store, it was really a birth of my own frustration navigating the CBD space. I've had chronic pain for the last 20 years and actually working very closely with Dr. June on that too as well. So I've been on a load of medication and most of it is focused on bladder issues. So I've had UTIs, pelvic spasms, just overall bladder issues for a very, very long time. Most of the time, doctors have put me on just medication, pain medication, antibiotics, a lot of antibiotics to the point where they gave me subtherapeutic antibiotics, which meant that I took a little bit every day. But I think that actually negatively affected just my stomach. So I have a very sensitive stomach on top of everything else that's happening. For a lot of women issues, I struggle with that too as well. So with that being said, I remember watching a Vice episode about maybe 3 years ago while editing photos for work and everything. And they were featuring, children using cannabis to treat their own medical issues and also even, Parkinson's patients and everything. And I thought maybe I can fall in the spectrum of pain relief of whatever I'm going through. And at the time, we were actually in Amsterdam. So my boyfriend Colin said, well, let's just go to a cafe and see if we can figure something out. And I grew up in the dare era where have not done any drugs in my life. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. So I was just afraid, and I really didn't know what I was doing when I was going into all these cafes. We went in, and I was more confused when I left than I came in. I had no idea what was happening. There were a lot of edible selection, which really no one walked me through. And we can talk a little bit more about the science of edibles versus the science of oils and other type of delivery methods. And in the end, I actually didn't get anything. Flew back to the US, and my brother's wedding was in San Francisco. So I was up there, and he goes, I'll take you to a dispensary to see, if we can find something for you. We went to dispensary, and again, the menu selection was very wide. And I think I wanted someone to talk to when it comes to my own concern, my own medical concerns, not necessarily kind of getting relaxed. I wanted more of a pain relief solution more than anything else. And I had a hard time navigating that space in San Francisco. He ended up selling me an edible, and I wanted CBD. I knew that. I said, let's start with CBD first, and maybe we can move to something stronger. He ended up selling me a pure THC edible. So I had a terrible reaction with that. So that, again, I think just gave me this confusion state more than anything else. Went back to New York, and as you know, New York has dispensaries, but no kind of open area for cannabis. So I visited every CBD store in New York, and the direction wasn't there in that sense. So I regrouped with Colin and said, I bet you other women especially are experiencing the same so they're just not satisfied with what's happening in the market, how to navigate the market. So can we create a safe space for them to do so? And that was when Artemis was born. We did all the research. We actually started looking into opening the shop after the Farm Bill passed. So that the Farm Bill passed in December, and we looked at the space in February, and we started building it out in March. And we really wanted to be almost against the technology side, meaning there's no there's no iPads, there's no screens anywhere in the store. We really wanted to make it feel very apothecarian, very personal, just like if you were walking into a beautiful, old pharmacy. So there's old books lined up everywhere, cement pieces to give you the indoor-outdoor feel. And we're very, very science-based. And we're very proud to say that Dr. Junella Chin is actually our chief medical advisor. So with that being said, we really try to integrate the lifestyle side, a little bit of just kind of a tidbit on the styling and fashion side, but more than anything else, the medical and science side when it comes to the store.
That is so beautiful. And you can see that each of the three of us are kind of accidentally into this area from our own issues, and then realize what is the stigma all about? So let's go back to you, June, because I love your story. It is so beautiful. And now share your journey.
So I was a patient before I even became a physician. When I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, also called AS. And what essentially it is an autoimmune disease of the spine. So when you think of a teenager, you think of a kid, they're, cartwheeling across the living room floor. But I had pain most of my childhood and well into my teenage years. And by the time I got to medical school, I was in school in San Francisco at the time, shortly after they legalized medical cannabis. I would wear a back brace. I would wear it and I'd pull it so tight so that it would give me some stability, because I didn't have any stability in my spine and I was in pain all the time. I couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes without having nerve pain. And so I would wear the back brace. I'd pull it so tight, sometimes it would really cut through my ribs and my skin, but it was the only way I could get through school and, doing rounds in the hospital or standing in the OR or delivering babies. Now, one day, one of my attendings saw me put on my brace And he asked me, what was going on. I told him I had AS, and that I was disheartened because here I was studying to be a doctor, and I had so many physicians, at my fingertips, but no one could really give me long-lasting relief. They prescribed gabapentin for my nerve pain. I've been prescribed baclofen, which is a muscle relaxant. And when that stopped working, they said, well, let's just try an antidepressant. The antidepressant should always work. If you're happier, maybe you'll be in less pain. I was supplied endless amounts of narcotics, oxy. And when the narcotics and medications gave me nausea and vomiting, they said, well, no problem. Here's an anti-nausea pill. Here's an antiemetic. And when that didn't work, they offered me steroids to shut down the immune system, to, decrease any pain. And unfortunately, nothing worked. I did do alternative medicine, acupuncture, I did herbs, I did Ayurvedic medicine, massage, but nothing really gave me long-lasting relief. And so one of my attendings pulled me aside and he said, I'm going to give you something a little bit unconventional. Don't freak out. And this attending was an HIV and AIDS doctor. I remember he was adorned with Native American jewelry. He had a hippie look to him. He had his long gray ponytail pulled to the back. And he gave me this little tincture bottle. And he said, this is a marijuana tincture. He didn't call it CBD at the time, obviously. He just said this was a different type of plant, a different type of strain. It doesn't make you as high as the other strains do. And my HIV and AIDS patients use it, and it really helps them with their pain. It really helps them, with their mobility. So I sat with the tincture on my dresser for several weeks because for me, growing up in a Chinese household, a very traditional Chinese household, also during, the DARE era, we were taught not to use cannabis. Cannabis led to schizophrenia is what my mom believed. And I grew up in the Bronx. And for me, there was a huge stigma around marijuana. I always thought of kids that, hung out behind the bleachers smoking weed and not going to school. And I was pre-med, so I didn't experiment very much. And I thought this is so ironic because here I am in medical school and I have a mentor that says I should try marijuana. So reluctantly I did. And to my surprise, by the time the weekend finished on Monday morning, it was working. I didn't feel too altered. I felt similar to having a glass of wine. But the main thing was I went back to the attending and I said, why aren't we learning about this in medical school? This could be something that's possibly helping people. It obviously helps your HIV and AIDS patients. It helps my chronic pain. And so I made it a decision to learn everything I could about this plant and how to integrate it safely with a conventional medical practice. So the problem is there's this catch-22, right? So we know that cannabis has medicinal value, but our Congress people in government are saying it's under-researched and we need more research. The FDA is saying we need more research, but because it's still federally regulated, we can't do this research. And this is a real valuable lesson. I think it's a valuable lesson that has been decades coming, decades and decades and decades. I think it's finally coming to a tipping point, especially during this pandemic, because it's really teaching us about our healthcare model and where there's gaps. It's teaching patients about integrative medicine, taking care of their own health, preventative medicine, nutrition, and I think it's giving patients more control of their life.
What a story. You didn't tell about your mom and how you were so afraid to tell her.
Yeah, I didn't tell my mom for a long time what I did. And when she did find out, she said, just tell your aunties and uncles that you're a pain doctor. Don't mention marijuana at all.
See, look at how the stigma has prevailed. And it's still here very much, even though it does have bipartisan support, meaning support for marijuana reform. And of course, we in the business would love to see full federal legalization. You do know this, I'm sure, audience, that you can't even, Dr. June could invent the most beautiful product for women in New York and not be able to ship it to California if it had THC properties above 0.3%. This is craziness. And the Farm Bill, as you heard earlier from Wendy, passed in the fall of 2018, opened the door to now these CBD products. So that's some of the difference of what's going on. But this is craziness. It's state by state regulations, completely insane and inappropriate to build a business. But certainly there's plenty of businesses, beautiful brands and beautiful products. And that's what we want to talk about next. Wendy, back to you. I was quite blown away visiting you in your shop. And what do you care about? You care about the consumer. You cared about the person standing in your shop. What are their needs? And about the COA. So teach us about what a COA even is and why is that important to you as a fabulous business owner and shopkeeper.
Thank you so much. If you think about it, with the supplement industry, cannabis and hemp is one of the most heavily regulated ones. Meaning that if I were to walk into Sephora and bought a mood enhancer, whatever they want to call it on the label, I really don't know what's in it. I really don't know the contents of it, the amounts of whatever they're claiming in it, but yet I can still buy it at Sephora. If you look at the CBD and hemp stores, we are very much involved in seeking out the exact qualifications and amounts that's in every product that there is. Then we can actually translate that and share that with our clients. So with that being said, I think it really empowers the client to make sure that they are getting exactly what they're looking for. But you can actually start journaling your own progress because you know what's in it now. So I think for me, as I was learning CBD, it was such a true place for me to understand how my body was responding to the different, plant compounds that I wasn't exposed to before. So a COA is attached to every product that is in the CBD space. I only work exclusively with CBD, so I can't speak to the cannabis side the way Dr. June can, but she can piggyback on that later. But for us, every product that comes into store has an attached COA. A COA is basically analysis of the breakdown of all of the cannabinoid content that's in the product. We also request for the terpene content as well. Every pesticide levels, microbiomes, everything that's attached to how the plant was processed at that level all the way to where it is in the store. We batch cross everything. So every time a batch comes in, we cross it with the COA that's attached to it. A lot of times we, at our store too, because we're so close to the science and we want to monitor every product very carefully, we order in small batches. That makes our job a little bit more complex and difficult, but in the end, we get to give you the exact amount that it's claimed on the batch. So because of that, every batch changes. This week I can order from one brand, the CO comes back and the ratio of CBD THC can be, let's just say a 20-1. For every 20 milligrams of CBD, you get 1 milligram THC, for example. The next batch I order within 7 days later can be a 45-1. But because of that, we try our very best to monitor it, and then we communicate that to our clients. If they're coming back for a refill or a refresh, that the ratio is a little different. So just monitor it, just have it in your mind, but don't change how you're taking it now. But if there's any reactions to it, then we can trace it back to exactly how you were taking it, what batch it came in.
That is so interesting. People need to understand this. And wouldn't you both agree it takes experimentation because we don't have the research fully in place. We don't understand the efficacy of what works for what issues. And I think you'd both corroborate that, right?
Yes, yes. And what I like about Artemis is they have like a dosing, a serving size guide. So when you go in, you can actually speak with Colin or Wendy, and they will walk you through each product and break down the math for you, which is very challenging, during doing the conversion process, and then helping you journal and letting you know, this is how much you should take in the beginning, and this is how you should gradually increase, and this is what you can safely expect. Because it's scary.
Stay with that for a minute. Cheryl Benton, our wonderful host, teed up a few questions that her community would love to know. And one is right on point to inflammation. Is there any one product, do you believe that the cannabis products you're aware of can help inflammation? Certainly that's what I use it for, but also tie it into any thoughts you have on the coronavirus. Is there any support or help there? So both of those issues, inflammation and then coronavirus, any supporting ideas there on products?
I think especially during the pandemic, it's most important than ever, more important than ever for us to keep our immune system optimally function. So that means right now it's allergy season. If you're coughing and sneezing, I think a lot of patients are freaking out and saying, "Oh my gosh, do I have the corona?" But you want to make sure that your lungs are clear, your congestion is clear, and part of that is using an anti-inflammatory. Part of that is making sure that you keep, good nutrition habits, exercise, and sleeping habits. And CBD can help you with all the above. CBD takes away inflammation. CBD calms the nervous system, so it can help you sleep. It calms digestive disorders, and it can actually get rid of the overhistamine reaction that you get from allergies. So taking a CBD dose daily sets a good foundation. What are some of your favorite products, Wendy?
And actually, I just want to piggyback on that too, before we go into kind of what my favorite products are and then what I'm taking. In the store, we actually sell vapes as well. And during the pandemic, that was something that we actually stopped. If there's a client that came in and asked for a vape, we try our very best to give them kind of what the situation is now, that we don't want to irritate your respiratory system anymore. So we can consider another delivery method if they insist to stay with it. We'll coach them through it. A more gentler oil when it comes to stomach issues. Like for me, hemp seed oil is really great. Olive oil is great too. Olive oil overall is great, but it does make me feel a little full. So that's because I'm experimenting with so many different delivery oils to know what my body responds to best. So for me, it's hemp seed is the best one for that. And when I have my pelvic episodes, I take upwards to 50 milligrams at nighttime. When I don't have it, and again, this is a full spectrum product, which means there's a little THC in it, under 0.3%, but there's still THC that's in the product itself. But my day dose, I take a much less dose because I don't want any sedative effects of over consuming CBD. But nighttime, I actually would want that because I do have sleeping issues as well. So the pain issues and the sleeping issues, I would up my dose at night. Then I would just decrease in the morning to help me calm and relax, but still be very focused at the same time.
You know how you just mentioned MCT oil and these other oils, those are really the carriers in, let's say, tinctures or other products, right? And so are some of the tinctures then, do they have, let's say, they have hemp seed oil, they have olive oil in them and not the MCT, right? So
That's correct. That's correct. So at the store, we actually actively seek out non-MCT carrier oil for that reason. If you have stomach issues or IBS or IBD, that can be a consideration that you have. So we try our best to do, because there's so much MCT oil available in the market, it can be a little difficult to seek it out, but we try to do a 60-40 ratio. So 60% of the product will have, the MCT oil, and then the 40% of the product will not. It can consist of sunflower oil, consists of hemp seed oil, and olive oil as the alternative, and not the MCT.
So you can see there's a big array of products. It's hard to know what to take for what. I know I myself, I love the tinctures because I don't want to take vape smoke or any kind of flower smoke into my lungs because I have respiratory issues. And so I'm not crazy about edibles because one doesn't really know the efficacy. And so that's a lot of experimentation also. Are there some CBD edibles, Wendy, that you've seen? And what about beverages? Do you believe in any of those?
I think they're delicious. And I think they're refreshing. But when it comes to, if a client comes in and goes, I want pain relief, and I want to drink something, we would have a different type of conversation. We would say, maybe perhaps you can have a capsule. So you can just drink with your favorite beverage, but still consume the content in a more concentrated dose. Maybe we can, put a drop of the oil into your favorite drink and have you consume it that way. But if you're looking for a pure beverage that's in the market, just the amount of concentration of CBD is just not high enough for a client that's looking for pain relief necessarily. When it comes to edibles currently in the CBD market, most of them are not full spectrum, meaning there is no THC at all in the edibles. We've actually only found one brand that has that little amount of THC. Because edibles tend to have a lot of sugar in them, if you're looking for an anti-inflammatory relief or properties, then we would have to maybe consider other options besides just, gummies and candies in that sense, or, so I think edibles are fun if you're looking for, but they're very consistent when it comes to the CBD world, meaning that there's no THC. The amount of edibles, the amount of milligrams of CBD there is in the gummy is set. You don't have to worry about anything else in that sense. For some people who are very, very sensitive, edibles are great, and that's a great way to introduce themselves into the hemp and CBD world. For others who are looking for, hey, I've tried the edibles and I think they're delicious, but I need something a much more heavier dose or much more stronger dose, then we start navigating the tincture oil section. And then once you've established your therapeutic dose, because capsules are locked dose, you can't really break a capsule in half to do a half amount of milligrams that's in the capsule. After you've achieved your therapeutic dose, then we can move into a capsule formulation, or we can stay with the oil. So there's a lot of adjustments with our clients. We, like Dr. June mentioned, we provide them with a dosing, a serving guide. So they track everything in a little journal that we provide them. And a lot of clients will come back with the journal, and we'll start reevaluating and then start assessing what the next step or phase 2 of their CBD world looks like.
That's so beautiful. What a great philosophy about offering your clients, your guests to your beautiful shop, the advice that they need. And so just to be clear about it, we talked about adult use versus medical. You may know this, New York is only a medical state, and we only have 10 vertical license holders, each able to grow, extract, and have 4 dispensaries. And that's how we got into the business. Again, for me, it was an accident, but New York passed that Compassionate Care Act for medical only back in 2014. And, it's really pretty crazy. There's only 40 dispensaries in the entire state of New York, which has 20 million people. Imagine if there were just 40 CVSs in our state. Now, you wonderful Californians are the mecca because you've been in business very long time, and all these gorgeous brands have popped up. So if you're in Colorado, if you're in California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, I'm encouraging you to go to a dispensary. You do not need a card, and experiment. Talk to, you got to love this, the people waiting on you are usually called bud tenders. Is that funny? And but many times they're extremely knowledgeable. Oftentimes they will have some CBD products, but that varies state by state. CBD can be made from the marijuana plant versus the hemp plant. If you were to look at both, they look identical, but they're bred in different ways, as you've heard. With the hemp plant, a low, very low amount of the THC, which is the psychoactive effect. So I'm suggesting being in one of those states, once we're all released to the wild, experimenting, talking to the bud tender about what's available for your need, asking about the COA like Wendy has shown you, that certificate of analysis. It's important. I want to know, is this organic? Are there pesticides in this? All that should be labeled. So turning now to some of the economics just to share. So do you realize that the revenues of the business in this past year, fiscal year 2019, was about $15 billion globally. Those were the sales generated. And that's mostly flower. That's not even all the ancillary products, everything from the testing platforms to technology to other kinds of products serving the industry. But the illicit market is at least, we believe, about $80 billion. And are you aware that actually New York City is the largest illicit market of all, because we don't have adult use, so people will go underground, and there's a very sophisticated market here of both sales and delivery. We have to end that. Wouldn't it be a good idea to turn that illicit revenue into tax revenue to support state tax deficits? Wouldn't it be a good idea to stop arresting people and spending the money that's spent on the criminal justice system for wealth, wellness, supporting business owners, creativity, ideation, building beautiful edible products and other products? That's what we are for. And so what's going to change that? The, the one the one belief that those of us who study this every day believe in, that's going to make the turn or change the laws to make this federally legal. So from California to New York, you could ship product, that you could manage and build products without this state by state, that we could then, and we found this in the states that have adult use, the illegal market goes way down because people want products that are tested and labeled. And so that's important. And there is bipartisan support. More than 80%, especially if a physician is involved, that want this kind of legalization. So let's bring tax revenue and public safety and diminish the illicit market. And it takes laws to do that. Now, believe it or not, the coronavirus has spurred new thinking because people are touching cash. They found the virus could stay on cash. Let's have safe banking. That's one of the laws that has already passed the House, and we're hopeful it can get through the Senate. And believe it or not, this past week, that was wrapped into one of the stimulus bills. So we'll see, because there's a very, very tough Republican senator from Idaho. His name is Senator Crapo. I call him Senator Crapo, and he is head of the banking committee and standing in the way of this passing. Maybe there's a workaround whereby this can be passed. Safe banking. Who doesn't want safe banking? Who doesn't want the ability to go to any bank? And today that's hard, not impossible, but it's very restrictive. So right behind that, my very representative, Senator Congressman Jerry Nadler, the Upper West Side of New York representative, has something called the Moore law that he's trying to pass. And that would also give states the right. So if a state like Idaho doesn't want any kind of program, they don't have to have it, but let the states that want it have it. So we believe those kinds of laws will change the game. So that's interesting to us, and we follow this really day by day. So I hope that you have heard some facts about our business, a little about the history, about the wellness, about health and products. At least maybe we change your mind a little bit if you were on the stigma side. And so, we welcome you to reach us, to talk to us if you wish. And I think that's important. I really want to thank Cheryl Benton, her team, for asking us to do this Renewal Summit. I hope you feel renewed. You can be renewed going forward just by paying attention, which we hope you've enjoyed this, been amused, maybe learned a few new tricks. And we really thank you. And I thank you, Wendy and Dr. June, for this, for supporting us, for supporting this community and being there for us with your practice and your beautiful shop. And thank you both. So how do people invest in this industry? Or how do you want to play in general? As a health professional, as a business owner, invent a product, be part of a team, be on the board of one of these wonderful companies. And once the East Coast does make the turn, there's going to be fabulous products and companies to join, to invest in, to be an advisor to be on the team if you want. I often share, especially with young people, our hair doesn't catch on fire anymore, at least we hope not. And so hire us. We want to play. We want to help you build. I am part of the ArcView Group, which is a fabulous community of members that invest in cannabis. That is what we do. And this was founded more than 10 years ago by two incredible pioneers, Steve D'Angelo and Troy Dayton. Join us if you want to invest. I'm also putting together a number of investment platforms, and we've made more than 8 investments to date. These are wonderful companies you'd enjoy learning about. They want you on their team. They want you to advise to them. And so come find us, Wendy, Dr. June, or myself, if you want to learn about products, seek medical advice, or seek investment support and ideas. Thank you so much for joining us today.